Because the truth is, what happens in those small, tender seconds right after can echo louder than the act itself. It may look simple, like the way he breathes, the way his arm brushes against you, or the way he closes his eyes for a little too long. But underneath those tiny gestures is a world of meaning. A man may not always understand what is happening in him at that moment, but his body and spirit are already telling a story. The truth is, he is not just recovering from passion. He is also deciding, without even knowing it, how safe it feels to remain open with you. Some men lean into that closeness without hesitation, wrapping themselves around you like they're afraid of losing the feeling too soon. Others roll to the side, their silence heavy, their distance confusing. But that doesn't always mean disinterest. Often, it means the intensity of what they just felt is too much to handle out loud. It's as if their entire life they've been asked to control every situation. And here, suddenly, there's no control, only surrender. That kind of surrender feels freeing, but also frightening, because what if that freedom isn't received with the same softness it was given? So when you stay, when your energy remains calm, when your hand rests gently instead of pulling away, when your eyes meet his without demand, it does something profound. It tells him that this side of him, the unguarded, unpolished, unspoken part, is still welcome here. That's not a small thing. That's not just comfort. That is memory. It carves itself into him in a way he may never be able to explain, but will always carry. And here's something many never say out loud in those moments. He isn't just thinking of you as his partner. He is experiencing you as home, a place his body, mind, and soul collapse into without fear. For a man who spends most of his life holding everything together, being able to unravel without judgment is not just intimacy. It is salvation. He will not call it that. He might not even know to think of it that way. But his nervous system, his heart, and his subconscious already know. This is why so many men return to women not because of appearance, not because of thrill, but because of how they felt afterward. The glow may fade, the fire may cool, but the way his chest softened when you stayed, the way his breath slowed when you matched it, the way silence between you was not empty but full, those things remain. They live in him long after, and it works the other way too. If what he feels in those moments is dismissal, if he senses you pulling away, if the warmth turns cold, his mind will protect itself. He may not even notice it right then, but some part of him will mark it down. And slowly, without ever saying a word, that distance becomes a habit. Not because he doesn't want closeness, but because he stops trusting it will be met. But when he does feel met, when he does feel safe, something unexpected happens. He begins to crave not only your body, but your presence. He doesn't always crave in the obvious way, but in the quiet moments when he's tired, when he's stressed, when he doesn't even know what he needs. He craves the place where his soul got to rest. That craving may look like longing, like missing you, like remembering you for no reason at all. And it's not because of the act itself, but because of what the act unlocked in him with you. Now imagine this, he lies there afterward, his breath finally steady, his mind both still and racing, and in that quiet, he realizes he does not want to escape. He wants to remain. He doesn't just want release, he wants to belong to that softness again. And that realization scares him because belonging is dangerous. Belonging means losing control, means giving power away, means trusting someone with a part of him that almost no one has seen. But in the same moment it scares him, it also binds him. Because once he's tasted it, he cannot unknow it. That's the paradox of men after intimacy. They may not always show it, they may even act the opposite. But deep inside, They're often less concerned about the pleasure itself and more struck by the vulnerability that followed. They're asking themselves silently, am I still safe here? Am I still wanted like this? Am I allowed to stay this unguarded? He won't say it out loud, but his body will. In his hold, in his stillness, in the way he looks at you when he thinks you aren't watching. And this is why your presence matters more than you might realize. Because in those moments, you are not just his lover. You are the one who teaches him what intimacy really is. Not the act, not the climax, but the after. The quiet after, the tender after, the space where truth finally breathes. So if you've ever wondered why a man remembers certain nights for years, why some connections never leave his bones, it's because of this. It's not the fire, it's the safety inside the fire. Not the thrill, but the trust that came after. That's what leaves a mark. That's what ties him to you long after the sheets cool, long after the noise fades, long after he tries to act like it was nothing. And maybe, just maybe, that's what intimacy was always meant to be. Not just bodies meeting, but souls recognizing, even if only for a moment, that they don't have to hide anymore. Because what lingers in him isn't just the memory of the act, but the way you stayed or didn't stay, the way you breathed with him or drifted away. Those tiny, invisible things shape the story his heart writes about you. To you it might feel small, but to him it is everything. That's the invisible bond, the silent contract, the unspoken truth that grows in the quiet afterward. And here's the part almost no one tells you. When he feels you there, steady and open, something inside him roots deeper than words. It's not just affection, not just love, it's recognition. He begins to recognize himself in you, the version of him that is softer, freer, more human. And that recognition is rare for him. He spends so much of his life in roles, in masks, in endless proving. But here, afterward, he isn't proving. He is simply being. And being accepted in that state becomes more intoxicating than anything his body could ever chase. That's why sometimes you'll notice him holding on longer than expected, his arm tightening as if to stop time itself. It's not lust anymore. It's not even passion. It's his instinct trying to preserve something fragile, the feeling of being seen without judgment. He might not speak it. He might even brush it off later. But in that moment, his soul is whispering, "Stay with me. Don't let this vanish." But if instead he feels the moment slip, if he feels you pull back too soon, that whisper turns into silence. And silence for a man is dangerous, not because it means nothing, but because it means too much. He stores it, files it away, and slowly begins to protect himself again. That wall he let crumble begins to rebuild, brick by brick, not out of anger but out of fear that the softest part of him was never meant to be held. Still, when he is met with warmth, when he is met with presence, something extraordinary unfolds. It is then he starts to link intimacy, not just with desire, but with healing. He doesn't know how to phrase it, but his body tells him, his spirit tells him. And the memory of that healing moment becomes something he craves, something that pulls him back to you, even when he tries to resist. Think about it. Long after passion fades, long after time dulls the memory of details, he will remember the way you made him feel safe in the stillness. He will remember that your silence wasn't emptiness, but invitation. He will remember that your touch wasn't demand, but reassurance. And those are the things that follow him, not in his body, but in his soul. And that's where intimacy becomes something more than a night, more than a memory. It becomes a thread woven through his being. He may go back to his world, to his duties, to his masks, but somewhere inside he carries a soft reminder. There is a place, there is a person, where he does not have to hold everything together. And that reminder, though quiet, is powerful. It changes him in ways even he cannot explain. This is why some men come back even when they swore they wouldn't. Why they remember even when years pass. Why they can't forget even if they try. It isn't because of the act itself. It's because of what the act revealed. That underneath the armor, underneath the control, underneath the roles, there is a man who longs to be felt and not just touched, to be seen and not just watched, to be wanted not for what he performs, but for who he is when the performance ends. And when you give him that, when you give him presence, patience, tenderness, then whether he admits it or not, you've changed the way he understands closeness. You've marked him in a way no distance, no silence, no passage of time can erase. So if you've ever wondered what it truly means, when he holds you tighter afterward, when he stays quiet but doesn't let go, when his eyes soften in a way they never do in daylight, it means this. It means the walls are down. It means his truth has slipped through. And it means that, for once, he's not just a man performing strength. He is a man finally allowing himself to be. And when he finally allows himself to be, something shifts inside him that even he may not recognize at first. It's subtle, but it lingers. He starts to feel not just connected to you, but changed by you. It's not about ownership, not about possession, not about conquest. It's about transformation. Because in that moment of surrender, he saw a side of himself that he usually hides, and instead of being rejected, it was received. That changes the way he sees himself, and it changes the way he sees you. He may never say it in words, because words are too heavy for something this delicate. But every time he remembers, every time his mind drifts back, every time his chest aches for a closeness he cannot name, he is reliving that truth. You were there when he let go, and you didn't let him fall. You caught him without asking, without demanding, without turning away, and that memory becomes a compass guiding him back, even when life pulls him in 1,000 directions. And here's the thing. Men rarely admit how much they long for that. They may pretend they don't need it. They may act indifferent. They may even convince themselves that it's just physical. But deep down, in the quiet places they never talk about, they crave the chance to be held without question, to be known without explanation, to be wanted without effort. That is what intimacy does when it's real. It doesn't just please the body, it frees the heart. That's why sometimes he'll surprise himself by wanting to stay close longer than usual. By resting his hand against you even in silence, by breathing you in as if he's afraid of forgetting the feeling. Because what he's trying to preserve isn't just connection, it's permission. Permission to exist as he is, unmasked, undone, unguarded. Permission to simply be human. And the irony is, most of his life he's been told to run from that softness, to armor up, to never show too much, to always keep control. But in that sacred stillness after, he realizes control isn't what he wants most. What he wants most is release, not just from the body, but from the weight he carries. And when that release is met with acceptance instead of rejection, it becomes unforgettable. This is why intimacy becomes memory that refuses to fade. Because for him, it wasn't just about the heat of passion. It was about the safety of the afterglow. It was about the eyes that didn't turn away, the arms that didn't let go, the silence that wasn't empty but full of presence. That is what etches itself into him. That is what binds him, even when he tries to convince himself otherwise. So if you've ever wondered why a man comes back, why he remembers, why he lingers in thought long after he's gone, it's because of this. It's not just the physical. It's the aftermath. It's the moment when his spirit was allowed to step outside the walls he built and found that, for once, it was safe to stay there. That safety becomes a hunger, a quiet ache he cannot shake. And once he's tasted it, no matter where he goes, no matter who he meets, he will always remember the one who gave it to him. And once he remembers the one who gave it to him, something inside him shifts forever. It might not be loud, it might not even be clear to him at first, but it's there, echoing beneath the surface of everything he does. He may move through his day like nothing changed, but a part of him knows it has. He knows because when the noise of the world grows too heavy, when the weight of expectation presses down on him, his mind drifts back to that moment of stillness, to the feeling of being accepted as he was. That memory becomes a refuge, a place he revisits in silence, even if his body is far away. That is the hidden power of intimacy. Not just the passion, not just the closeness, but the imprint it leaves behind. For a man, it's not always the heat that calls him back. It's the healing. He doesn't think of it in those words, but his heart knows. His heart remembers. His heart aches for it in ways his mouth will never admit. And that ache can last a lifetime, because what he finds in those quiet moments after isn't just pleasure, it's truth. The truth of who he is when the masks fall away. The truth of how much he longs to rest. The truth that somewhere deep down, he wants more than release, he wants return. Return to a self that doesn't have to fight, that doesn't have to pretend, that doesn't have to always be strong. That return is rare, almost impossible for him to find in the world. And when it happens with you, it marks him. It marks him because suddenly he knows that intimacy isn't just about the body, it's about the soul. It's not about escape. It's about arrival. It's about finding in you the place he never knew he was missing. And the longer he lies there afterward, the more that realization begins to settle in, not with fireworks, but with quiet certainty. The kind of certainty that stays. So when he holds you tighter, when he lingers instead of leaving, when his silence feels thick with something unnamed, that is what's happening. His soul is registering that he's found a space he cannot manufacture anywhere else. And whether he says it or not, whether he even understands it or not, he begins to see you differently. Not just as the woman he touched, but as the woman who touched something in him that goes far beyond flesh. And that's why, even years later, a man might close his eyes and still feel the trace of you. Not because of the act itself, but because of how he felt afterward. Because you didn't just give him your body, you gave him something far rarer. You gave him safety in his surrender. You gave him shelter in his unraveling. And that, more than anything else, is what he can never forget. And when he cannot forget, it becomes something he carries quietly, almost secretly. You may never see it in his words, because he may not know how to say it. Men are not often taught to put language to feelings like this. Instead, it shows up in smaller ways, in the pauses between his sentences, in the way he looks at you when he thinks you aren't watching, in the silence that feels full instead of empty. That is how you know the memory is alive in him. It doesn't fade, it lives in the spaces between, and when he feels it, he begins to change, even if he fights against it. He may try to go back to being distant, to hiding, to protecting himself with silence. But the truth is, once he has experienced that kind of intimacy, something inside him resists going back to emptiness. He may try to deny it, he may try to bury it, but his body remembers, his heart remembers, his soul remembers. That kind of memory cannot be erased. That is why sometimes a man will pull closer to you even when he doesn't plan to. It isn't strategy, it isn't decision. It's instinct. His instinct knows where he felt at peace, where he let go, where he was seen, and instinct always pulls him back to safety, even if his mind tries to reason otherwise. This is also why he can't fake it, why he can't just find it anywhere. The world may offer him distractions, may offer him temptation, but none of it feels the same. None of it gives him that quiet release of being himself. And when he notices the difference, when he feels the lack, he begins to understand. What you gave him wasn't ordinary. It was rare. It was real. And real doesn't leave him, no matter how hard he tries to push it away. He may test it, he may distance himself, he may even pretend he doesn't need it. But when the nights get long, when the silence of his own thoughts grows too heavy, it comes back. The memory of you comes back. The way you stayed, the way you touched without demand, the way you breathed with him instead of against him. It all comes back, and it softens him even when he doesn't want to admit it. That is why the afterglow of intimacy is not just a passing state. It is a shaping force. It carves into him a reminder that he can be more than the roles he plays, more than the control he carries, more than the armor he wears. And once that reminder exists, he cannot unknow it. It becomes part of him, part of his inner landscape, part of the way he now measures closeness. So when he looks at you differently, when he lingers, when his silence stretches longer than words, it isn't emptiness. It is recognition. It is the quiet understanding that he has been changed, and that you are the one who changed him. And even if life pulls him away, even if circumstances shift, that truth remains carved into him. Because once a man has tasted intimacy that touches not only his body, but also his soul, he never forgets. He cannot forget.